Hey guys, welcome back. So if you've been around my channel for a while, you'll know that I did a video a little while back basically giving some cozy mystery recommendations to those of you who enjoy the romance genre. What we learned in that video was that cozy mysteries and romance tend to have a lot of overlap in terms of their themes, and so it only makes sense to have cozy mysteries that have romance elements that I wanted to share with you all, so that if you are new to the cozy mystery genre or you're one of those people who enjoy both the romance and cozy mystery genre, you could have some cozies that have romantic elements in it. Now, that brings us to today's video. I thought that it would be fun to kind of do a follow-up on that video, but the opposite, basically. What I have for you guys are romances that I think if you are a cozy mystery lover, you would enjoy. Now, again, like I said, I find that the cozy mystery genre does have a lot of overlap with romance, more specifically the more light-hearted contemporary romance. I think that they're both a lot of fun. They both have very specific elements that I think that they share. You can find one of those elements in both of the stories, and so it's for that reason I figured it would be interesting for me to give a couple of suggestions for romances that basically I think you would enjoy if you are a cozy mystery fan. Now, I do have some kind of qualifications, I guess, because of course if you're watching this, you're probably going to want to know basically why you would pick up this romance if you enjoy cozy mysteries, and don't worry, I've got you covered. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the books, but before that, I guess let me go ahead and quickly explain kind of the criteria that I used to build this list. Okay, so I've got my list here, and I just wanted to give a quick rundown so that you guys could understand what things I was looking for basically in these romances when I chose these books for you all. So first one, and I think to be honest, it's probably the biggest one, and that is the small town, or at least a very small town feel. As we all know, as cozy mystery lovers, more often than not, these cozies take place in small towns. And more importantly, these small towns almost become a character in themselves, because we all know that it has its own unique set of challenges, because you've got your gossiping neighbors, you've got kind of everyone knowing everyone's business, and then there's just that kind of general quaintness to small towns, the fact that you're removed from the big city and all of the obstacles that they hold. Instead, you're on the small town feel. That's one of the things that I wanted to take into consideration when kind of doing this romance roundup. Now, the next thing is the light mystery subplot. Now, don't get me wrong, not all of these romance books that I'm about to list have kind of a mystery subplot, but if you're one of those cozy mystery lovers that really want some kind of mystery element in your story, there are romances that have that. Now, technically speaking, there's a whole genre of romantic suspense where you have both romance as well as mystery kind of entangled together, but to be honest, I find that those stories tend to be a little bit heavier, and the list that I'm talking about today is going to lean more on the lighter side, because I feel like cozy mysteries and lighthearted romances go together more, even if there's not a mystery in the romance, than, let's say, a cozy mystery versus an actual romantic suspense that does have a mystery in it. So hopefully you're following me with that, but I did take into account kind of some kind of mystery involved with one or two of these suggestions. Next up, we've got quirky side characters. You guys know I love me some quirky side characters, whether it's the actual sidekick to the amateur sleuth, or if it's the townspeople or their family. Perfect example, which I talk about all the time, is the Meg Langslow series by Donna Andrews, and how her family is just large and extremely quirky, how they come with basically their own set of baggage, but it's so charming and it adds so much to the story. So I definitely wanted to try and include these kind of quirky side characters when giving these romance recommendations. And lastly, I kind of shoehorned this one in, but to be honest, I still think that it's relevant, and it's kind of piggybacking off of the side characters, but in this case, instead of being of the two-legged variety, we're talking about those of the four-legged variety. Yes, I'm talking about animal side sidekicks. Now, we all know that there are tons of cozy mysteries that have animal sidekicks, you know, where our amateur sleuth has like a dog or a cat. Depending on how integral they are with the plot, they can just be there for comedic relief or emotional relief, or they could be magical or help solve the case in some kind of way. Either way, we love seeing pets and animals in cozy mysteries, and I feel the same way about my romances. I love romances that feature animal sidekicks, so I definitely have a romance suggestion on this list that has an animal sidekick that I think if you are an animal themed cozy mystery lover, you'll definitely appreciate that. Okay, so that said, now that we got all the qualifications out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into the books. Now, I've got my list here, and in addition to kind of giving you a quick overview about what the story is about, I'll also kind of tell you which of these criteria related to cozy mysteries these books meet, so that you'll know what to expect and you can kind of choose which theme or which point you favor the most when deciding whether or not you want to pick this up. So first book that we have is Forever Girl by Jill Shalvis. Now, full disclosure, I love Jill Shalvis. She's actually my favorite romance author. I've got like a reader's guide all about her work. I can rave on and on about her. To be honest, she's probably the romance equivalent of my beloved Meg Langslow series. I love her that much. But anyway, let's talk about her latest release, Forever Girl, which actually just released a couple of days ago as I'm filming this video. But basically what we've got is a woman who wakes up out of a coma. She was told that she was never going to walk again, and lo and behold, she defies the odds thanks to her physical therapist. Now, this guy has been working with her ever since she woke up out of her coma. She calls him evil, but that's really only because he really pushes her to heal herself. And so along the way, she is trying to kind of get her life back on track. You know, she's trying to find a job, and she finds herself obviously falling for her personal trainer, which, you know, you want to keep things professional, but at the same time, they have so much in common, and there's just a chemistry there that can't be denied. Now, the reason that I chose this book, well, there's a few reasons actually. Number one, it takes place in a small town. If you love small town cozies or just the small town vibe, definitely pick up Jill Shalvis books in general, because she does small town so well, and you just feel at home in all of the fictional towns that she talks about. Now, the second reason that I chose this book is because of the quirky side characters. I won't get into too many specifics because I don't want to spoil anything. However, her physical trainer, or physical therapist, excuse me, he lives with his dad who recently had a stroke, and so you see the dad in a lot of the scenes because they're interacting with one another, and he is a hoot. I mean, he's not even necessarily kind of like a crotchety old man, but he's very sassy. He says what's on his mind, and it comes in at like the best time. To the characters, it might be a little inopportune, but as a reader, you are just laughing hysterically because he tells it like it is, but it's also really funny as well. And the last reason that I chose this, more importantly for some of you folks, is because of the animal side characters. Now, one of the things that our main character does after she comes out of her coma while she's trying to put her life back together is working at a doggy daycare. And so naturally you are seeing tons of dogs, and that already is heartwarming. But beyond that, she's got her own emotional support dog named Hog, and Hog is like this giant, I think he's like a Saint Bernard, but he is just, he steals the show. I tell you, between him and the grandfather, they make the best side characters. So if you like cozies with small towns, animal sidekicks, and just general human quirky side characters, definitely check this one out. Okay, next up, I want to talk about Mistletoe and Mr. Right. Now, full disclosure, I read this book a while ago and I didn't love it. However, that's my personal opinion, and I still think that it meets a lot of qualifications that if you like cozy mysteries, you would like this as a romance, because it's got the small town setting, you've got your mystery subplot, and a lot of people really enjoyed it, and so I really wanted to recommend it to you guys, even though it wasn't my like ultimate favorite. Now, for this book, we have our main heroine. She is staying in Alaska because she is trying to essentially build up this, I want to say like hotel resort, and while she's there, because it's such a small town, she's got the whole town basically going against her, which is something that we see often in cozy mysteries, right? You're new to town, you come into a small town, and you've already got the people kind of against you because they are set in their ways, they don't want things to change, they definitely don't want like big brands coming into their town and kind of ruining the vibe and making things too touristy, and that's exactly what happens in this case. Now, as far as the romance goes, our main heroine is kind of up against, well, not really up against, but she's basically coupled with the town crotchety guy. This guy, I believe, owns the local bar in the area. He's been living there his entire life, so everybody knows him, and he's definitely one of those people who is against change and against building anything big and touristy in his town. However, there is a chemistry between the two of them, and he really wants to help her out so that she can at least learn to appreciate all that small town has to offer, so that maybe they could both benefit from this situation. Now, like I said, it does take place in a small town in Alaska, so you've already got that small town setting, and more so beyond that, I believe it takes place around Christmas time as well, so you're getting that atmospheric vibe in the best kind of way, because as we all know, when it comes to cozies, setting is key. Sometimes it can play out as its own character, so if anything is set during winter time, especially in Alaska, you're getting all of those snowy description and cold nights, and you really just kind of like want to curl up with some hot chocolate, so you've definitely got that vibe there. Now, I also mentioned a mystery subplot, which this one does have. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still a contemporary romance, and it's not the main plot. However, there is kind of like a B subplot in which there's this vandal going around leaving inappropriate vandalism, but harmless, on the job site where this woman is trying to work. And so naturally, you know, she's trying to figure out what's happening and trying to get to the bottom of it. And I believe there's also another kind of mystery subplot, or some kind of something that they have to resolve regarding a wild moose. I don't want to give away too much detail, but it is something that's funny and humorous, and it does have that mystery element. So if you want your romance with a little bit of mystery, a little whodunit, definitely check this one out. Okay, so this next one is also a contemporary romance, and it's called The Unhoneymooners. Now, there are a couple of reasons that I chose this one. The biggest one, again, it's the setting. Now, don't get me wrong, this one is not set in a small town, but it's instead set in Hawaii, which I think lends itself to that atmospheric vibe. And again, I'm using atmosphere in a very specific way, not like creepy, obviously, but just to where the setting plays a really big deal with the descriptions, especially for this time of year. If you want to pick it up, you know, obviously we all want to be armchair traveling and traveling in real life, so anything set in Hawaii, sign me up. And so the other reason that I chose it is because of the witty banter. Now, in a lot of our cozy mysteries, there are romantic elements where our amateur sleuth may come across like the town sheriff or someone else in the town who ends up becoming a potential love interest, and they always have some really good banter going between them. That's the same situation here. Now, I love witty banter in general, no matter if it's cozies or romance, but I especially love it in my romance because it really comes through with the chemistry between the couple, and so this one is definitely no exception. We basically have an enemies to lover situation, which, if you're not familiar with that term, it basically means that the couple starts off not liking each other whatsoever. Side note, that's something that's very common in cozies as well. Again, where our amateur sleuth might butt heads with like the local authorities. But anyway, with enemies to lovers, and in this book in particular, they don't like each other at all. And by they, I mean our main female character, who is the bridesmaids of her sister, and then her couple, her opponent, is the groom's brother. They don't like each other for one reason or the other. Unfortunately, during that wedding weekend, everybody, including the bride and groom, get food poisoning, which means that there is this fantastic honeymoon going unclaimed. And so what do? They go on the honeymoon, of course. They don't want it to go to waste. And so basically you have these two people who could not like each other anymore going on this romantic honeymoon meant for a newlywed couple. And so hijinks are going to ensue. So like I said, you've got that Hawaii setting, which, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a cozy or a romance. Anything set in Hawaii, sign me up. Obviously, you're going to have some really fiery back and forth banter because they don't like each other. That's another thing that you can check off the list. And then lastly, you've got that enemies to lovers, which in cozy mysteries, again, it's not necessarily enemies to lovers, but you'll see a lot of situations where there's nemesis or frenemies. A lot of the cases, the nemesis ends up being the one who is murdered, which is why our amateur sleuth is usually like the #1 suspect. Don't get me wrong, there's no death in this one, but you do have that kind of nemesis situation going on. Okay, so this next one, if you've been around my channel for a while, will be familiar if you've ever seen any of my romance videos, because I absolutely adored this book, and I think that it would be perfect for cozy mystery lovers, and it's called Heidi's Guide to 4-Letter Words. Let me just off the bat say, if you pick this up, you have to listen to it on audiobook. That's one of the main reasons why I love it so much. I'll actually go ahead and link I believe the video now explaining why it's so great on audiobook. I love it that much. But anyway, I do think that this is a great romance for those of you who love cozies, just mostly because of the charm of it all. I think that it's such a charming book, and sometimes there are cozies that just feel good. It either hits you at the right time, it takes place in the perfect setting, and it just gives you the overall warm and fuzzies. I find that animal cozies tend to do that a lot for me. The kind of magical ones tend to do that for me. There's something that you can't really put your finger on, but you're left reading it and just feeling good. And that's exactly what this book does, even though it's a romance. So I know that's not necessarily a quantifiable reason, but you guys are readers. You get what I'm talking about. So basically what this one is about is a woman named Heidi who is actually let go from her teaching job. And so naturally she's left having to find a new job. She ends up submitting an application to this audiobook recording studio. And so when she goes to the job, she is very surprised to learn that the type of books that they are narrating are erotica books. Now, she's open-minded, but she's very inexperienced. So this comes as a shock to her, even though she doesn't quit. And so she ends up kind of sticking around and using this newfound situation to basically elevate her own life, come into her own, and give her courage to go after her neighbor next door who she's had a crush on. Now, along the way, she's chronicling all of this in a podcast, which, again, if you listen to it on audio, you will hear kind of like snippets of the podcast, and it's just so charming. You see such great character development in this. It's just a wonderful story all around. So like I said, super charming. If you want to get technical, one of the things that is kind of cozy-esque about it, in addition to the charm, is the fact that it takes place in a small town. So you are getting that small town vibe because this is a very everyone knows everyone kind of situation. There are a couple of scenes where the kind of neighborhood or the local women find out the kind of job that she's doing, and they kind of do a little whispering behind her back. Again, that is all very familiar in cozy mysteries, so you've definitely got that element here. But like I said, I really wanted to put this on the list because of its charm, and it's just such a wonderful story all around that I really do hope that you give it a try. Okay, so last up we have Kiss My Cupcake. This is another enemies to lovers story, which again I chose because of the whole nemesis aspect. I chose it for a couple of other reasons also, but let me tell you what it's about really quickly. at the core, it's a enemies to lover that is about two people who own opposing restaurants side by side. And by restaurants, I mean that our main female character owns a cupcake shop, and she's very like by the book, very Instagram worthy, and wants everything to be perfect. However, the person stopping her from fulfilling her dream and making her cupcake shop a success is her next door neighbor, who is a owner of the bar next door. So the two of them are basically duking it out, but we all know in the end they're going to come together because opposites attract. And so that makes for a really good time to kind of read along and kind of see how their relationship goes from enemies to lovers with a whole lot of chemistry in between. Now, like I said, the reason that I chose this one is because of the whole nemesis aspect, which I've already touched on. We know that that's a really prominent theme in a lot of cozy mysteries, and same goes for the banter. I find that anytime that there is a situation where the couples don't typically like each other in the beginning, the banter between them tends to sizzle and be a lot wittier, which is something that I absolutely love. Again, not only in cozies, but in romance as well. And then lastly, and I feel like this is more important, and that's really why I put this one on the list, is the whole food aspect. We know that there are tons of foodie cozies, whether we are talking about sweets like cupcakes, or we're talking about beer like the Sloane Krause series. And so if you're a fan of foodie cozies, then definitely check this one out, because you're definitely going to get your fill of the cupcake shop descriptions, of the bar descriptions, of all of the different flavors. Again, whether it's sweet or savory, everything in between. This one is a perfect recommendation. Okay, so there you have it. A handful of romances for those of you who enjoy cozy mysteries and are looking for romances, either because you're new to the genre, you don't really know where to start, or you're familiar with the genre and you just want romance recommendations, because let's be honest, we all get our recommendations from BookTube or Instagram these days. At least I know I do. There's so many out there. It's just easy to kind of see what everybody else is recommending. I definitely recommend these for the reasons that I listed out. So I hope you do give them a try. If you've already read them, let me know what you think, and if you think that they are good recommendations for cozy lovers. And if you haven't read any but you do end up reading them, let me know what you think as well, because I'm interested to see what your take on all of these are. Again, they're all contemporary romances, lighthearted, which I think is something that's very important when it comes to transitioning from the cozy genre to romance. And more importantly, I think that they are perfect reads for this time of year, because you want something lighthearted, perhaps something to take along on vacation, and I hope that these recommendations do just that. So that said, please like and subscribe if you like this video and you want to see more like it. In the meantime, happy reading, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye!